Hello, hello, and welcome. I am so excited for today's episode. If you are a coach or a service provider, and maybe you've been wondering, if you've been questioning, how do you know when it's time to pivot in your business, this episode is going to be for you. So, regardless if you're a coach, a service provider, or a consultant, we're going to be talking about how to know when it's time to pivot in your coaching business. I think a lot of the time I've been doing some podcast episode recording this week, and I've had some amazing guests who have been on, and we've been talking a lot about how they've been able to leverage their business beyond one-on-one services. And I think sometimes I know my current clients, they kind of struggle with, how do you know when it's time to pivot? How do you know when it's time to actually, adjust your business model or make changes in your business model? Like, how do you know when it's time to do that? So I'm going to be talking to you guys about that today, all right? So if you have any questions as I'm going through this, please feel free to pop them in the comments and let me know. And we're going to go ahead and get right on started, okay? So I will be sharing my screen and kind of going back and forth between screens. So if you don't have a pen, paper, or notebook, I'd actually highly recommend grabbing one because we'll be taking some notes today, okay? So there's three main things that, let me add in the screen here. There's three main things that you need to be thinking about as a business owner. There's really three phases of business that you're going to be growing through. And it's really important to know which phase do you need to be focused on. And also not just even what phase you need to be focused on. Based off what phase you're in, it'll let you know when it's time to pivot or not, okay? So there's, like I said, there's three main phases. Oh, and guys, can you guys see this on the screen? Let me see if you guys can actually see this on the screen. But there's three main phases that your business is going to be going through no matter what. And like I said, it's good for you to realize which phase in business that you're in. So the first one is all about, the first thing that you need to be focused on when you're growing your business, building your business, whatever, is you need to be focusing on how are you generating money. Okay? The first phase that you need to be focused on at all times in the very beginning of your business is how are you generating money? And I did an episode on this earlier this week. So if you haven't heard that one, it was a Q&A episode that I did. I would actually go back and listen to that because I talk about this a lot more in depth. But if you're building your business in the beginning stages, all you need to be focused on is how am I generating cash flow? How am I creating revenue? You do not need to be focusing on branding. You do not need to be focusing on like really everything that's outside of this bubble, your website, your branding, marketing, photo shoots, like all of that stuff. You guys can't see that in the screen. All of this other stuff you do not need to be focused on. Like the only thing you need to be focused on in the beginning is how am I getting to a point where my business is bringing in consistent money. Once you have got to a point where you know how to actually sell your services, you know how to generate cash flow, you know how to bring money into the door, that's where we go into phase 2, which is all about manage. And this is where you really learn how to, let's see if we're going to get this right. This is where you learn how to actually manage what you've done within the business. And what that means is this is where you learn how to actually manage your money, and start to learn how to how do you leverage your business model so you can start managing your time more effectively. Managing where you're spending your time, how you're showing up in your business, managing your cash flow better. This is really where you start to solidify things, put systems in place, start to create more management around your actual brand, where I would actually start investing in my website, investing in my branding, investing in marketing, but not doing that until I get to this phase. I would not focus on that prior to, you need to know how to sell, how to make money. So let's say here, these focal points here is you need to know how to sell. You need to know how to actually bring money in the door. You need to be comfortable with sales, comfortable having those sales conversations. After you can do that, then you're focusing on management. How am I managing my time? How am I managing my team? How am I leveraging my business model? How am I focusing on managing the cash flow of the business? All of those types of things. After you get into management is where you worry about multiply. And this is where I think a lot of people try to skip too fast, too soon. Multiplying is really about how are you scaling? How are you amplifying the things that are already working in your business? But if you don't have these things already working, you do not need to be spending your time worrying about how am I going to scale? You don't have anything to scale if you don't have these first two things in place. So really the first phase in business is all about money. How are you creating cash flow? How are you bringing clients in the door? It is all about sales, and you really understanding the art of sales, understanding the art of being able to articulate the value of what you do in a way that other people can understand, and you getting really, really comfortable with attracting qualified clients to you and being able to confidently enroll those clients into your program, right? After the money, that's where management comes in. How am I managing my time? How am I leveraging my business model? How am I managing my client delivery process? How am I managing the perception of my brand? All of those things come after you know how to sell. After management, that's when you focus on multiplying, because you have these two phases are your foundation. And these things really set you up to scale. But if you do not have these two things in place and have a really solid foundation around them, your business is never going to get to a point where you're able to multiply and amplify the results that you're seeing, okay? Is this making sense? Just throw some hearts up on the screen or pop in the chat. Let me know, is this making sense so far, okay? Now, the question is, how do you know when you're ready to pivot? How you know when you're ready to pivot, all of this stuff here, this overlap, this here, these are pivot points. I'm going to actually color that in orange. Here and here. These are pivot points, okay? And what I mean by pivot points is typically when you're in this phase of your business, when you're in the first phase just focusing on money, a lot of the time you're going to be working with clients one-on-one. You're going to be spending your time working very hands-on, direct with clients, because you're trying to develop your process. You're trying to make sure that you know how to get clients results. You're learning how to confidently sell your service. You're learning how to articulate your value. A lot of the time you're going to be in a one-on-one container in this phase, right? So let me write that in. A lot of the time that's what's going to be happening. You'll be one-on-one. But after you get to a point where you're starting to reach capacity with one-on-one clients, you're seeing that you're able to get clients consistent results with the service that you do. You know how to, there's some predictability, maybe not predictability, but you have confidence on knowing that you can actually sell your service. This is where a pivot point comes in, where your business model typically evolves or shifts. Now you're probably going from one-on-one to how do I get to one-to-many? How do I increase my client load without, how do I make more money and increase my client load without also increasing the amount of time that it takes me to deliver that service? So here is a pivot point where you normally will evolve your business model. The service that you're selling or the promise that you deliver stays consistent, but you learn how to deliver it during using a different vehicle or a different way. So normally when you get into the management phase, that's when you're trying to go to one-to-many. Whether that's a group program or it's some sort of leveraged offer, right? After you go into management, now you're in one-to-many, typically you'll reach another point where you have to pivot in your business, pivot your business model, pivot how you're showing up for your clients, you'll pivot in some way, shape, or form when it comes time to multiply. So if you ever ask yourself, how do I know when it's time for me to pivot in my business? I think this is a really good framework for you to keep in mind. One, so you can focus on what season of business you're in and just what makes sense for where you are. Are you in the money phase? Are you in the manage phase? Are you in the multiply phase? And typically when you're transitioning from one phase to the next, there's normally going to be an evolution or a pivot in how you're showing up for your clients or how your business model looks. Okay? So let me know, guys, is this making sense? Because I feel like this was a lot of information shared in a short period of time. But is this making sense so far? And kind of when you think about you and where you are in your business, which phase do you feel like you're in? And how is this resonating with you guys so far? Any questions? So really it's money, manage, multiply. And then at each one of these crosshairs where these two intersect, your business model typically is you're going to have a pivot. You're going to pivot in how you're delivering your service. You're going to pivot in how you maybe sell your service. Your business model typically evolves at these pivot points. Okay? So I know a lot of you guys have been asking me the question, which one of you, a lot of you guys have been reaching out to me lately saying, Jay, how do I work with you? And do I need to be in services that sell, or do I need to be in leverage? Where do I need to be? And I want to give you guys, if anybody has been curious about working with us, what that looks like. So our program Services That Sell is really for anybody in the money phase. Services That Sell teaches our clients how to articulate their value, how to package what their signature offer is, how to get comfortable enrolling clients at a high ticket premium price point. So Services That Sell is really where that happens. When you get into this little marker right here, right, you start stepping into the zone where you need to make that first pivot, because either you're at capacity with clients, you notice that you want to make more money, but you can't take on more clients. So you know that you need to rearrange or adjust how you're serving your clients. Everything after that is when you enroll in leverage. Because leverage teaches our clients how to evolve beyond one-on-one and create a leverage group offer, but it really teaches them more of these management skills. And leverage, especially in that first year, really is setting them up to scale. Because after you've been able to introduce a high ticket group program, be able to put the structures and the pieces in place for you to be able to deliver your service, support your clients, leverage and automate aspects of your client experience, how you onboard clients, how you actually repurpose your marketing and sell your services, and really refine those two elements, your sales and the delivery of your service. Then you have a foundation after you've launched that leverage program 2, 3, 4 times. Then you're ready to actually scale the thing that you've built. So Services That Sell is really for anybody in this money phase. If you have gotten down the money part and you're ready to pivot and evolve, and you're moving into how do I start managing my time better? How do I start stepping into more of a CEO role? How do I leverage the way that I show up and serve my clients? That's when we introduce, and it might be a good time for you to enroll in leverage. So this is really, I think, a good framework for you to keep in mind if you're thinking about how do I know when it's time for me to pivot? And this framework here can also help you inform what decisions you need to be focusing on and how to make some of these decisions at different phases in your business. So I hope this was really helpful for you guys, right? I'm seeing Marvette said this is making a lot of sense, pivoting into the management phase now. Absolutely. Kimberly says, yes, definitely. This is so good, says Mickey. Good stuff. Shauna K says she's in managing. Okay, awesome. I'm really glad this was helpful for you guys, because I know this is a question I've been getting often from you guys in my DMs, just asking me, okay, how do I know when I'm ready to pivot? How do I know when I'm ready for a leveraged offer? How do I know when I'm ready to change some of these things? And again, I really hope this framework is helping you come up with your own decision doctrine to know how to make these decisions and start thinking more strategically as a CEO. So I have a couple minutes here. If you guys have any questions about this, we can talk about it. I can answer some of your questions here too. Hey, Jasmine. Hey, Shauna K. Hey, y'all. Yeah, this is definitely more workshop-y. So I'm glad this was helpful for you guys. But are there any questions that you guys have about this? Or is this crystal clear? You got it? Did it help put things in perspective for you? But yeah. And I think it's really important, like I said earlier in this, is like knowing what phase of business that you are in and being confident in that. Because I think one of the errors that I see business owners make, which can have and cause them to lose money or waste time, energy, or effort, is trying to solve problems in phases of business that they're not in yet. So they're almost like trying to anticipate all the problems that are going to come and trying to avoid making mistakes or failure in these phases that are beyond where they currently are. And a lot of the time when I see business owners doing that, it can almost paralyze them from making the decisions that they need to make today, because they're trying to avoid making a mistake or failing in a future phase, which is, we want to avoid that at all cost. It's really important for you as a CEO to strategically think ahead and to prepare for what's coming ahead. But you don't want to let the future what ifs of like negative outcomes, potential failure, or what have you paralyze you from making the decisions and maintaining the focus for where you need to be right now. Marvette said, what are some starting points for the management phase? I think the first start point you need to decide is like deciding on your business model. When you go from, you know how to make money, like again, a lot of the time you're working with clients one-on-one, enrolling those clients fairly consistently. Like you have a really good grip on, I know that I help my clients get results and I have a good level of confidence on selling it. When you go into managing in that first phase and pivoting, the first thing that you need to do is decide on your business model. What is my business model going to be? How do I plan on growing my business here on out beyond one-on-one? Do I want to do a group program? Do I want to do a low ticket digital course? So the first thing you need to decide is business model. Are you going to be a high ticket, low volume business? Or are you going to be a low ticket, high volume business? Those are two very different business models. They require very different strategies for success. That's the first question. I say starting point is decide, what is your business model going to be? Do you want to sell high ticket, again, where you're enrolling clients $1,500, $3,000, $6,000, $10,000? Or do you want to be enrolling clients at $197, $497, $37 membership? Which business model do you want to go down? Once you decide on your business model, then you need to clarify your rates. Okay, what does our price point need to be? And that aligns with the business objective and the outcomes that we're trying to receive in our business. And once you can decide on your business model, like I said, that's a very intentional choice that you have to make as a CEO, which business model you want to go into. Hold on guys, I'm trying to pull up something because I think this will be helpful here too. After you decide on the business model, like I said, you need to clarify your rates in the sense of, okay, how much are we going to be charging and just what makes sense for what we're doing now. And then the last thing that you need to do is clarify your promise. So really the first thing you need to do when you go into management is you need to start to think about how am I refining what I've been doing and really dialing in on what this new phase is going to look like. So deciding your business model, clarifying your rates, and qualifying your rates and clarifying your promise. What is the promise that you're going to be delivering now after you've made those pivot? So you really need to focus on refining, and those are those first three things that you need to do when you start stepping into that management phase. So Marvette, I hope that was helpful for you. Mickey said, are there revenue points that signal the next phase? I would say so. I would say typically the money phase, like if you can get your business to a point where you're doing like healthy 5 figures, like most people who are in the money phase are making somewhere between like 30 and like $80,000 a year is money phase that we see most often. Like, they have a pretty healthy 5-figure a year business. I'd say you start reaching that. Sometimes people do more than that and they don't pivot fast enough. When you don't pivot fast or soon enough, you start to experience these like major capacity constraints, right? You start to notice yourself like having this really negative type of hustle in your business. You have, no free time, no personal time. You feel like you can't turn your brain off. But I would say that $30,000 to $80,000 range for the money phase. And then once you start, like I have a healthy 5-figure business, it's like, okay, how do we shift into managing this? How do we shift into leveraging this? And I would say that's a really good indicator where it's time for you to start thinking about what this leveraged business model is going to be and how you're going to show up differently, how you're going to start putting the right infrastructure, the systems in place for you to be able to manage the growth of your business, manage how you're showing up in your business. Like the management phase can be pretty long in my opinion. Just because there's so many attributes that go into managing your business properly, from how you show up as an employee in your business, how you show up as a CEO in your business, how you're delivering to your clients, how are you managing your cash flow, how are you building out systems. All of those things are encompassed in managing. So I'd say the management phase is, we normally see people, like I said, that 50 grand to 80 grand, I'd say up into about $200,000, $300,000, really getting you to that $250,000 mark, $300K mark. after you get to that 300K mark, we really need to think about how are we truly multiplying the impact of what it is that you're doing so we can get you to that $1 million mark. And that's kind of just what I've noticed and what I've seen when I think about this of like, okay, how are we making money? Okay, how do we now start to leverage aspects of our business and start to be better manage the intricacies of your business? And then from there, how do we now multiply and amplify the impact of this foundation that we've built? And we normally see that when people are at, 150, 300K, where it's time, okay, how do we now multiply this to get to $1 million? So I'm giving you price ranges because it varies based off the mindset of the CEO, not necessarily off of where the revenue always is. Because I think there's some business owners who are committed and they want to be prepared and they're ready to make decisions sooner in their business, even if the revenue doesn't always match. And sometimes, I know for me, I was very stubborn. It took me, I got to about maybe 150K in revenue before I decided to really double down on pivoting my business model and creating more of a leveraged offer as my front end signature service. I was very stubborn. I was afraid of relinquishing control. I was really afraid. I was just afraid of letting go of how much control I had over things in my business. To really fully embody and embrace what was required of me in management. But we have people who are inside of leverage who are making $50,000 a year, but their mindset is further along than where mine was when I was at that price point or that revenue goal in my business. So Mickey, do those income ranges is just kind of what I would share with you as an indicator. But I think money can be a huge indicator on when it's time to pivot, because I think money is partially, but it's also thinking about capacity. So your cash flow is one factor, but another factor I think is a really good indicator of when it's time to pivot is what's happening with your capacity. Because when you start to notice that, okay, I want to make more money, but I'm seeing myself having this extreme exchange of time for money. And if you're not happy with that type of lifestyle, then it's a very good indication that we need to leverage or adjust how we're showing up and delivering for our clients. If you're already in a leveraged offer and maybe you're consistent to a certain degree, but you really want to start experiencing exponential results, or you really want to have a compound multiplication effect on the results you're seeing. Again, that's another, I'd say capacity is a huge factor on when it's time to pivot and what makes sense. Okay. So those are some things I would consider on, the question that you asked. That was a fantastic question. So guys, I'm really grateful that you guys tuned in tonight. This was, I know, meaty, much more of a training workshop-y thing for you, but I hope it was helpful. But if you are somebody who is ready to pivot in their business model, maybe you're ready to pivot and introduce a high ticket offer. Maybe you're ready to pivot and raise your rates. Maybe you're ready to pivot in the sense of, okay, I want to start leveraging things in my business. I highly invite you to sign up for my next training session. You can visit jerishahawk.com/raise your rates. So jerishahawk.com/raise your rates, all no spaces or anything in that. You can sign up for our next training session. And this will really walk you in a lot more in depth of how to start putting these things in place so you can be really generating some more money and really building out that first leg of the framework that we talked about today. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will holla at y'all later. Have a great night. So bye y'all.